A lot of guys coming up, guys and girls, they look at NBA players like yourself, the current players, as superheroes. And you
Mhm.
touched on a little bit when we first started, just about the off the court kind of things that you dealt with as a player and things that you went through. For the young people looking up, looking at you and players right now, as far as guidance, what kind of message would you tell them as far as how to stay the course, whether it's academic wise or even sports wise, to try to not let what's going on off the court affect your
Yeah.
whole life to consume them?
Yeah, no, it's something that I'm real candid about, and that was one of the beauties of me returning to Milwaukee was that when I played there for 7 years, I was into just kind of playing, but also having a good time and drinking and drugs and all that was around, and I partook. So this time around, this is a part
Mhm.
of that second lifestyle in one lifetime.
Yeah.
I get to go back and mentor these kids. I'm working with an organization called the Running Rebels Youth Organization. I do a lot of stuff with them. Some other great mentoring organizations that we bring these young men and women in, and because I've got 7 kids from the ages of 45, my oldest son, to 11. I know how to relate to these young people, to talk to them kind of on their
Mhm.
level, and to listen to them is the most important thing. And so so I'm real candid about what I went through, just to let them know,
Mhm.
hopefully none of them have to go through anything like drug abuse, alcoholism, or whatever it is, divorce, whatever it happens to be. But I went through it, and I feel like
Yeah.
God allowed me to go through it for a reason. So that's why. So that's so that I could share my experience, strength, and hope with the people behind me. And this is not to stop them from going through it. They're going to do what they're going to do,
Yeah.
but to let them know that there's a way out. It's not the falling down, but it's the staying down. So if you fall down, just look at me as someone who struggled with some issues, fell down for a moment, didn't want to live for a moment, had a son die in a drowning accident in 1987, the darkest day of my life, Marcus Jr. I fished him out of the backyard swimming pool and tried to bring him back. And we sat at the UCLA emergency section of the hospital for 5 days to see if he was going to live or die. Debbie Allen came through and sat with us a couple of nights and cried with us. Elaine Theus, the wife of Reggie Theus, sat there and cried with us. I mean, it was an emotionally enriching experience that I had a hard time recovering from, and my life devolved, and my drug abuse and alcoholism increased as a result of it. But the point is that I was able to come out of it, and I thank God,
Yes.
my spiritual connection, my family support, the
Mhm.
good people God has placed in my life are all responsible for that. So that's the message, without preaching too much, that I try and pass on. That you're gonna man, this life, you're gonna have some challenges, whether it's
Mhm.
whatever it happens to be. You're not gonna live life challenge free. It just doesn't work that way. But the whole point is that whatever it is, you have to walk through, do what it takes to get through it. If it's seeking outside help, don't be too much ego driven to go seek some therapy or whatever it is you need to seek. But the bottom line is to make sure that you get up and become a productive member of society. And once you do that, reach back and help somebody else. Reach back and make yourself available to help somebody else. And that's what I try and do.
And for us, that what you just said was so profound because, especially with COVID and the pandemic and the youth being virtual, like I'll share with Sean, that said in New York City, there's hundreds of thousands of kids in the inner city that have gone off the radar.
Yeah,
The schools do not know where they are.
right.
First, they didn't have the tools to be internet or whatever,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah,
Um, and they're only, I have a cousin that's educated for 30 something years, and she just got back this week to the school in the South Browns. And she's like, it's hard because, you're trying to bring them back and you don't know what, trying to open them up to what they've been experiencing during this time,
yeah.
you
No,
know,
it's
the
a
only
challenge.
safe place was school for
Yeah,
them, or at least showing them another alternative. And then you have to bring them back. And I think it's so important as as you shared as an adult, it says, we all have issues. We're not just, and our mental health is an issue and it's nothing to be ashamed of. Speak to someone.
yeah,
It's okay to be, I said to the youth, I said, it's okay to be not okay. I'm like, yeah, sometimes, some days I'm not okay.
right.
And I have people that I speak to.
Yeah, and you hit it on the head. And it's interesting. I'm an old school kind of a guy.
Mhm.
And so like during the course of the week, she just started going back to school, my 11-year-old, like 2 weeks ago. But before that, it was all homeschool, all Zoom school, all that, no interaction with her, all that. And so my wife would have these play dates during the week for her, weeknights. And I initially I'm like, come on, I mean, it's a weeknight. Her buddies coming over to swim and on a school night, this is old school. My parents would do, come on, homework, work out, go to bed. That should be it. But then, I started thinking about that very thing you just mentioned, Sharon. These are desperate times, and sometimes they call for desperate measures. And she can have some contact, one-on-one, human to human, with somebody who, is tested negative,
Yeah.
and they practice the social distancing as much as they can at that age. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
So it's made me have to even relax some of my
Yeah.
strictness as a parent, how I normally would be, because these times are so abnormal. And the other thing is that you start hearing about some of the symptoms of these kids who have isolated so much this past year,
Yes.
and they've got this latent depression that they're not even aware of, that as a parent you may not even pick up on. Then all of a sudden they blow their brains out, or they take overdose, they do something crazy, and you wonder where it came from. A good buddy of mine, a pastor out here in Los Angeles, his son over the last few months committed suicide. He was at a school down in Louisiana, and not to say that how much COVID related it was, but these times are just dangerous, perilous times that we've got to keep on top of our kids. I got a son down at Sam Houston State. I mentioned that, and my wife, he's like a mama's boy. That's her oldest son. After I remarried, 21 years old, Cyrus, just gorgeous looking kid, great kid. But he's sullen, he's silent, he's introverted, he keeps things inside. And so she's been down there like once a month. And initially I was like, he got to cut the apron strings. He gave me, he gave me a bump. But then I thought about it. He's never dealt with this before.
Yeah.
COVID, isolation, away from us, away from home. He actually came, he tested positive, got sick in all of January, asthma, respiratory problem, blah, blah, blah. And so she's trying to get his medication right, and then the inhalers and all. And I'm like, go for it. Go down there as much as you need to, because, he needs you right now. And these times are so unusual and non-conventional that you've got
Mhm.
to take a non-conventional approach in dealing with it. So I agree with you 100%.